Αγαπητοί φίλοι και φίλες, καλησπέρα. Καλώς ορίσατε στο φακό του HellenicTV. Σήμερα θα μιλήσουμε για ποίηση και είναι μεγάλη μας χαρά που φιλοξενούμε την Alev Adil και την Maria Χριστοδούλου, μάλιστα συνονόματι. Θα μας μιλήσουν για την επερχόμενη εκδήλωση στην ύπατη αρμοστία Κύπρου στο Λονδίνο. Πάμε να τις γνωρίσουμε και να μάθουμε περισσότερα. Good evening. Nice meeting you, both of you.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi.
I think you look, both of you, a bit shy, but don't worry, you'll be fine in a second, It's so exciting, we are so looking forward to this event, which is going to be on the 29th of January. So, Alev Adil, you are a writer, artist, and literary critic, yes? And
Yes.
Maria, poet, teacher, and PhD candidate at the University of Kent. You are both very busy, I can see.
Very busy.
We are.
I'm so curious to find out about this, of course, about the event, about the inspiration, first of all, behind the collaboration for digital diaspora poets in conversation. Who would like to go first? It's like asking the class now.
It is. Well, I think you kind of said it. We are really busy people, and we've been trying to collaborate on a project for a long time. And then Alev had the idea when we were talking over WhatsApp one day that we should actually do it over WhatsApp and create a poem, a collaborative poem between us in conversation via WhatsApp. So that's how the kind of digital side became, how it got into existence, essentially. We've got very busy lives, and
So you created a group, like the two of you, and you were sending poems to each other? I mean, your poems, how exactly?
Well, when we think about poetry, a lot of people who aren't so familiar with poetry, they think of someone sitting in a tower with a quill pen, waiting for inspiration. And poetry, we're both poets. We're also activists. I'm so privileged to be working with Maria-Sophia. She got in touch with me as she's doing her PhD, and I'm pretty ancient and been around. And it's so exciting to find out what we put people into generations and categories, and Turkish speaking, Greek speaking, diaspora, born in Cyprus. Oh, straight, gay, blah, 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 blah. And it's so nice to just connect. And one of the ways that people connect in the world now is digitally. And one of the things that's really important with poetry is keeping it contemporary. And so, it was partly practical, but it was also an aesthetic, artistic decision, that we can make these things work creatively. And it also, for me, it was really quite deep, actually, not just about writing a poem, but finding, instead of writing to me, how's it going? Hope you're not too stressed, blah, blah. What's the, to find another way of communicating. So for me, it was a really deep project. I loved it. I'm going to do more of it.
So for how long have you been working on this WhatsApp project?
I think so. It was from the end of August. A few months. Wow. It was end of August to November, but it's very sporadic. So it's not a consistent everyday message. And they're not they can be read as singular poems, but they're also lines and little parts and, responding to each other. So, it happened over a few months. And then the final two lines, which were from me, because I'd sent it so late after nearly a week and a bit not responding because of just time. Alev said, you have to leave it on those last two lines because it really sums up the whole piece. And the last two lines are about how much time do we have, essentially. So, it was
It seemed a good place to stop, because we'd originally set the thing that we should reply on the same day if we can, or the next day. And when you lose momentum, you start worrying about, is this the right line? Is this poetry or whatever? Whereas the idea was to just come up with an answer, like you would reply to a message quickly. So it seemed to come to a natural end, but I miss it. So I'm definitely gonna do. I was saying to Maria-Sophia, after when we do the event, there are going to be micro performances as well, and we should write a new one, and maybe a bigger WhatsApp group, or doing it in conversation with different friends. It's a really nice poetic form.
Exactly. I mean, you have to think that this is only the beginning. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. And before I go further, Alev, I have to apologize because I pronounced your name wrong. It's Alev, not Alev, as I said. Sorry about
darling. This. What, a rose by any other name, or l'amour? However you say it, it sounds lovely.
I thought, I made a mistake, you know, here. Now, Maria, your poetry explores intergenerational trauma within the Cypriot diaspora. What led you to focus on this theme, and how does it resonate with contemporary audiences?
I think this theme is something that's obviously embedded in the Cypriot diaspora DNA for many generations, and in most diaspora DNAs it is embedded in there. You know, what is passed down from our ancestors, good and bad and somewhat okay, is something that will never stop. You know, whether that is songs or stories or food recipes, but also the trauma that is carried by our ancestors, and even more closer to us, our parents, our grandparents, etc. So I think it's just all around me, and it just felt like this is what I need to do more of. This is what I need to research, whether it was hearing about my second cousin twice removed who was in Athalassa in 1974, and finding out what happened to him, and then all these stories just kind of connect into this overarching theme of trauma. And I realized I really wanted to do more work on it, and of course poetry is my outlet, so responding to all of that creatively is how I research.
Excellent. Thank you, Maria. Alev, your poetry has been described as creating new and unimagined communities. How do you use also myth and existentialism to build this sense of connection? Oh my God, that's a difficult word. You can do better with this.
Existentialism. Well, existentialism, it's a difficult kind of word, but it's a complex concept, but it's also a simple concept, because it's about the now, and really trying to appreciate the now, and to not necessarily get to the authentic, but to see where we're performing and try and take away the moment, to really experience the moment without re-performing the past. Myth is huge for me. I'm an artist as well, and in fact at the moment I'm trying to get a project together about Aphrodite, because if you're going to ask me my religion, and you're going to say, oh, in Cyprus there are, you know, Greek Orthodox, and there are Catholics, and there are Muslims. There's also Aphrodite worshippers. That's me. Because I feel that this goddess energy is so important. I'm not being New Age here. It's quite physical. I feel that these stories are about forces that are at work, and that what's really Cypriot, it's not even a language. It's the earth, it's the sea, it's the sky. And I feel that these myths tie us to people, the people who have lived there, our ancestors, and people who aren't our ancestors, who've lived there for millennia. So myth for me is so important. Also, it's a way of retelling old stories with a different perspective. And it can be a shortcut if people know those myths. I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages, because if people don't know the myths, then they might think you're being too esoteric. So you have to think about that one too.
Exactly. It can
But
be,
also,
yes,
there's
difficult,
such wild stories, Vasula.
yes.
There's such
But
wild.
Aphrodites, yes, I think, yes, you should do Aphrodites with flowers on her hair. And we'll come to the event. We'll come to the event on the 29th under one condition. We want to see you with the flowers on your head.
Okay, we'll wear laurel wreaths.
I just love it. It's so beautiful. I'm going to send you a photo later on to see that. I'll do that as well.
Deal.
Yes. It's beautiful. Now, Maria, in Sokaki roads, you respond to the erasure and alteration of Cypriot road signs. How does this project connect with your personal and cultural narratives?
So that project I did in October with Diversity Arts Festival in Cyprus, in Leisure Street, and at the Crossing, basically, in the north. So it was a really interesting project where we collaborated with all different artists to make this amazing, diverse festival. And I'm thankful to everyone that allowed me to partake in that. But that was interesting because it was a way, again, of communicating poetry, but not with the usual form of it being in front of you or where you just hear it. It was through road signs. So I made these road signs with lines of poems on, and then I stuck them all around Lidra and essentially confused people, made people a bit uncomfortable, and I think that was the point. Again, responding to that generational trauma through poetry, but not in a conventional way.
Excellent, thank you. Alev, in your co-edited book, Nicosia Beyond the Barriers, Voices from a Divided City, I would like you to tell us a bit about this.
Yeah, I was part of a team for that, and actually, small world, we could almost say, that it connects me to Maria because her supervisor, her PhD supervisor, Bahria Kemal, was one of the co-editors. So I co-edited that book with Aydin Mehmet Ali, Bahria Kemal, and Maria Petridis. And it grew out of Literary Arts Agency Cyprus, which was a project bringing together women and people who identify as women, although the book wasn't only women, but initially we started like that, bringing together Cypriot writers, particularly Cypriots who wrote in English, because a lot of Cypriots now do write in English. I mean, Den Milau Hellenica, and you bring together different communities, you bring together diaspora. And we held a whole series over a number of years. We held writing workshops, and then we also invited other people. And then Saki, who are a publisher mainly of kind of Middle Eastern books, published this anthology of a very rich, diverse range of voices. And also the cover, the cover is a photo of mine. So I'm very glad that I could bring together my visual and poetic work. But the stuff I have in there is prose, and it's prose. It's a book of prose. Although, you could say there's prose poetry and some poetry, but it's mainly prose. But it was very, very uplifting. And it was about putting Nicosia on the post-colonial writing map.
How do you manage with, so many things? I was reading your biography that you've sent me, and I thought, oh, well, when did you do all this? It's impossible to mention everything, today. But anyway, well done. Fantastic.
Thank you, Vasula. But you do a lot too. We all do. Yes. When you write it down, and actually everybody don't forget to write down your achievements, because we end up just saying, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? And it's good to write down all your achievements and give yourself a pat on the back.
Sometimes we don't know till others, our friends or family, they come to you and they say, oh my God, you have achieved so much, and you're thinking, really? You know, is this a lot? Is this important? We don't realize ourselves. So that's a good point. Now, Maria, a disbelief of flesh is a deeply intimate collection. What role does vulnerability play in healing through poetry?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think poetry, I think healing is a hard word. I think healing can be problematic because we aren't always looking to heal. We're looking to care for ourselves and still live with what we have, but kind of find ways of overcoming different moments and different struggles. And I think poetry is that constant for me. So poetry becomes a place where I can kind of hide, but also expose myself and play with language, play with ideas, and then produce something that I can just love as well and communicate what I want to communicate. I think it's also really good because it doesn't always have to make sense. Everyone interprets it differently. So it means that I can kind of say what I want to say, and then you can feel what you want to feel when you read it. I mean, Anthony Anaxagoru, obviously the infamous poet, he helps me so much with my poetry at the moment, and you know, he's always telling me, like, think about it as it is, as if it's a thing, as it's, you know, something you can play with, something you can go beyond with it. You have the freedom to, and I think that's why poetry will always be kind of my outlet, and why it's good, like you said, as a form of healing.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Now, before you tell us about the actual night, you know, Alev, your film Memory in the Dead Zone delves into the fragility of the archives and time. How does this concept relate to the themes of digital diaspora?
Well, it actually relates quite a lot, because this Memory in the Dead Zone project is something I've been doing since 2011 in many different forms. Installation, projection, film, and at the moment it's showing at the Leventis in the Leventis Gallery in Nicosia. It's part of an exhibition there, part of a group exhibition, which is commemorating, but engaging with, you know, the anniversaries of 1963 and 1974 and those traumas. And these films are thinking about memory as technology. So I have 3 screens, and they're on antique furniture, which is really part of the permanent exhibition, is really kind of very luxury. But the films are quite scruffy. One of them is kind of remade out of home movie footage from the 60s and from actually the events in 63 with, you know, warplanes and things like that. And I've used the most destroyed parts of the film to think about how memory also corrodes and changes. The second film is layering of moments from films that are significant to me with my own images. And the third film is me reading a voice-activated poem with a projection of Lefkara lacework on my face. So it almost looks like kind of those African tattoos. I didn't mean it to, but it does. And so this idea around technology and how technology, how the mediation of a form, whether it's poetry, and actually in all those 3 works, there's poetry. So I'm very interested in the mediation of poetry. So what I'm doing is always a kind of poesis or literally poetry, but I am always very interested in the mediated specifics of it. And so there is that connection there, because again, this is very tied to WhatsApp, to the telephone. It's both connection, but it's also a certain kind of isolation, because it's not 2 women face to face, but again, always mediated.
Exactly, which is happening anyway in normal life, you know, every day, you know, the WhatsApp or voice messages now, you know, it's easier when we are too busy Oh, I just can't write, let me leave a voice message, because it's quicker. Now, about the evening, 29th of January at Cyprus High Commission. It says here exhibition at 6 p.m. That means, I guess, the doors open at 6 p.m., yes? So people can see the exhibition, and then at 7 o'clock, it's the performance.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Marios will,
what should we expect?
The cultural attaché will introduce us so that the audience gets a little bit of context. And then we will perform the dialogue and some of our own poetry and have a Q&A. But it will be, it will be a very approachable event. So even if people aren't generally into poetry, I think it's something they can enjoy, thinking about modern life themes. And I want to say, I know Maria feels the same, but it's such an honor and a pleasure that we've been invited. It's such a wonderful location, and it's so many beautiful events for the community there. So it's really nice. I really hope you'll all come.
Thank you for saying, how you feel about this opportunity, Alev. And I was going to ask you that. Maria, how do you feel about it?
It feels very surreal, and like Alev, I'm extremely thankful to be part of the project and part of that space and be in the long list of people that have been able to showcase their work there. I think it is so important that as a diaspora, we are constantly coming together and making sure that we celebrate each other. And I think this evening will be another one of those celebrations, and just creating dialogue as well.
What do you hope the audience will reflect upon after attending this event? And I want this answer from both of you. And this is the last question.
I think that poetry is malleable, and that poetry can be anything. And we shouldn't feel scared or nervous to produce our art. And there's always a place for art, even in the craziness of life.
Thank you. Alev.
I hope that people will have a sense of creative inspiration in their own creative endeavors, whether it's writing or whatever it is. And I also hope that people will have a real sense of connection and will make connections on that evening. And also, I hope people will be really excited about what it means to be Cypriot, that there are so many different and wonderful ways to be Cypriot and to appreciate our island and our culture. Yeah, that's what I'm really hoping for.
Yeah, thank you, both of you. Now, we have to say that although the event is free, and there is no ticket, it's very important to make a reservation via Eventbrite. And the link is on cultural section, on Cyprus High Commission page, and also on social media. Yeah, I believe this is the case. Yes,
exactly that. Yes.
So we have to urge people to reserve the spot as soon as possible, so they will not get disappointed.
So we have enough chairs for you all.
Yes. We are really looking forward to the event, and nice meeting you both, and wishing you the best.
Thank you so much, Vasula. Thank you.
Thank you.
Παρακαλώ. Thank you.
Καληνύχτα.
Καληνύχτα. Αγαπητοί φίλοι και φίλες, εμείς θα τα πούμε και πάλι πολύ σύντομα με ένα καινούριο θέμα και καινούριος φιλοξενούμενος. Καλό σας βράδυ.